Welcome back, grade 7 for math. We are continuing in chapter 5 of angle properties in straight lines. We've learned complementary angles and supplementary angles and adjacent angles and angles on a straight line. We've also learned about angles around angles on a point. Okay. Today we're continuing with that, and we're going to do solving problems involving vertical angles. You need your math notebook, you need your math book, you need a pencil, you need a protractor, you need a ruler, and pencil. I said pencil. Okay. All right. So let's dive in. All right. We are going to draw two straight lines that intersect each other and label the angles as measure of angle A, measure of angle B, measure of angle C, and measure of angle D. Okay. So I drew two straight lines that intersect each other. Yours does not have to look like mine, but we do want to have them intersect. So intersect like this, right? And they intersect at a point, okay? And I labeled my angles A, B, C, and D, okay? We are going to use a protractor to measure the four angles formed at the intersection. So grab your protractor, all right? And remember, you line up your baseline. Whoops, I did not mean to think an extra copy. So we line it up close as we can get it. All right. Okay. So basically this is measuring angle C. The measure of angle C, we're going to use the inside scale, and measure of angle C measures 40 degrees. And because we drew a straight line, remember, I can go to the other side to measure angle B. Angle B measures 140 degrees. I can flip my protractor around, and then I just need to line up my edges. There we go. Oops. All right. Now, again, not always drawn the best to scale, but it's the best we can do. And we can see that angle A measures about 40 degrees as well, and D measures 140 degrees. All right. Now, yours should be different. However, what do we know about angles on a straight line? They should add up to 180, okay? All right, and remember, those are adjacent angles, right? We talked about these being adjacent to each other. So this angle is adjacent to this angle, and this angle is adjacent to this angle, okay? What angles are non-adjacent? If we looked at this, what angles are non-adjacent, meaning they are not next to each other? Angle A and angle C, and angle B and angle D are non-adjacent, right? They are not next to each other, okay? So, two pairs, correct Miss Allie's English, two pairs of vertical angles are formed when two lines cross, okay? So when two lines cross, like we have up here, these two lines cross, two pairs of vertical angles are formed, okay? And vertical angles are opposite of each other, so they are non-adjacent. Now, not all non-adjacent angles are vertical angles, but these two are opposite of each other, okay? So A and C are opposite of each other, so these are vertical angles. B and D are opposite each other, so they are vertical angles, okay? So that is what we are talking about today, and we're going to talk about it more. So use a ruler and draw a line segment and label the endpoints A, B. Okay, so I drew my line segment here and I labeled one endpoint A and the other endpoint B. You're going to draw another line and label the endpoints C and D. Okay? And they label the point of intersection O. All right? How many angles are formed from the intersecting line segments? I hope you said 4. We have 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay? So the non-adjacent angles are vertical angles. Okay? So we have angle AOD and angle COB, and we have angle AOC and angle DOB. Okay? These are non-adjacent angles. Okay? And so these are vertical angles because they are opposite of each other. Now, since AOD and DOB are adjacent angles that form a straight line, they are supplementary, which means that the sum of their angle measures equals 180 degrees. Right? And AOC and AOD are also adjacent angles that form a straight line. So they are supplementary, right? So AOD and DOB form the straight line on this side, and AOC and AOD form the straight line on this side. Okay? So they share AOD. Okay? So we're going to look at what this means. So you can still see your drawing, okay, even though you can't see mine, okay. So we have angle AOD plus angle DOB equals 180, okay. Now, we can find the measure of angle DOB by subtracting the angle of AOD from both sides, which would leave us with DOB equals 180 minus the angle of AOD. Okay? Sorry, this should be AOD. My fault. Okay, so we can find the measure of angle AOC, not AOC, yeah, AOC, by subtracting AOD from both sides. So the measure of DOB is 180 minus the angle AOD. The measure of AOC is 180 minus AOD. They're the same. So, or we can say, therefore, that's the math sign for therefore. The DOB equals AOC because they have the same, they equal the same thing, okay? And if we look up here, we see that DOB is the same as AOC, okay? If we go back to where we measured, right, we saw that angle C was equal to angle A. They both were 40, okay? So, when two angles have the same measure, they're called congruent angles, okay? Two angles that have the same measure are called congruent angles. So, vertical angles are congruent. And we denote that, we note that by using arcs. So we would say this angle is congruent to this angle. And if 2 and 4 are congruent, then 3 and 1 are congruent. Okay? And we use 2 arcs to show that it's a different angle, but that these two are congruent to each other. And we can use a math sentence to find that out. So what about angles AOD, DOB, and COB? All right. So the measure of angle AOD plus the measure of angle DOB equals 180. Right? And the measure of angle COB plus the measure of angle DOB equals 180. Are one thing in common. So let's do the measure of DOB is 180 minus the measure of AOD. And the same thing for down here. It's just 180 minus the measure of angle COB. Sorry. I did that wrong. Some things, we want to look for the other ones. Sorry. The measure of angle AOD equals 180 minus the measure of angle DOB. The other equation was correct, but that wasn't what we were trying to find. And so the measure of angle COB equals 180 degrees minus the measure of angle DOB. And since these have the same, we can say, therefore, angle AOD is equal to angle COB and we can, it's also because they are vertical angles. We just proved vertical angles, okay? So, sorry about the confusion. If there was some. Hopefully it's not there anymore. So you can see that AOD and COB have the same measure. Okay? All right, let's apply this. Okay? Let's find the value of a variable using the property of vertical angles. Okay? So when we're writing this down, I'm having you draw the picture, and I want you to write what I'm giving you, because remember, not all drawings are drawn to scale, so you can only go based on what is given. Okay? And so you are given that AB and CD, lines AB and line CD, are straight lines. We're also given that this angle is 2x and this angle is 60. Find the value of x. Okay? So we're going to set this up, and we're going to use the property of vertical angles. Okay? And that's written as vert angles. Okay? So from this property, we know that vertical angles are congruent. So we know that 2x equals 60. Divide both sides by 2. X equals 30. Okay? And that's it. Isn't it great when we know that vertical angles are congruent? All right, so two straight lines intersect to form angles 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay? So this is telling us that this is a straight line and this is a straight line because they formed angles 1, 2, 3, and 4. Find the value of each variable if, and you should write this down because we need to know, actually it's already written in there, that measure of angle 1 is 76 degrees. Okay? So, we know that these are straight lines. Okay? So, what do we know about the measure of angle 1 plus the measure of angle 2? Well, they are adjacent angles on a straight line, so they add up to 180 degrees. We can fill in or substitute in. Measure of angle 1 is 76 degrees because that is given. And the measure of angle 2 is A. We subtract 76 from both sides. And A is 104 degrees. Okay. Now I'm going to write this over here because if we look at our image or our diagram, okay, we can see vertical angles like this says. Vertical angles. Okay. So in vertical angles, measure of angle 3, what do we know about the measure of angle 3? It's going to equal the measure of angle 1. Substitute in, measure of angle 3 is B. And measure of angle 1 is 76 degrees. With vertical angles, the measure of angle 2 equals what? The measure of angle 4. Measure of angle 2 we found was 104 degrees because it's A, right? And measure of angle 4 is C. So A equals 104 degrees, B equals 76 degrees, and C equals 104 degrees. Okay. All right. This diagram may not be drawn to scale. Okay, so in your notebook, you're going to write what's in blue. Line AB and line CD are straight lines. Find the value of Y. I started it for you, 3Y. Okay, pause this video. I want you to try and solve, and then come back and check your work. So, because we know vertical angles, we just learned, so we know that this angle is congruent to this angle. So 3y equals 120 degrees because vertical angles. Okay, divide both sides by 3 and you get y equals 40 degrees. Found the value of y. If y is 40, then this is 120, which you found already. Okay. All right. And then B. Two straight lines intersect to form angles 1, 2, 3, and 4. Find the value of each variable if the measure of angle 1 equals 114 degrees. Okay. So, what do you know, excuse me, about measure of angle 1 and measure of angle 2? Pause this video, come back and check your work. Because they are supplementary angles or angles on a straight line, they add up to 180 degrees. I know that angle 1 is 114 degrees plus the measure of angle 2 equals 180. Measure of angle 2 equals 66 degrees. Okay? Now, because of vertical angles, I know that measure of angle 3 equals the measure of angle 1. So the measure of angle 3 equals 114 degrees. I know that the measure of angle 2, or let's do 4, equals the measure of angle 2 because of vertical angles. Measure of angle 4 equals 66 degrees. Okay, so we just applied vertical angles. So now let's look back at what we had on yesterday. How can we solve this? How can we solve this problem? What is it that we know? We know that AB is a straight line. We know that CD is a straight line. Make this an E. Okay. The measures of EOD and DOF are in the ratio of 2 to 3. Find the measure of the angle AOC plus and DOB. Okay. So I set it up for you. What do you know about AOC and COB? Well, they're on a straight line, so they're going to equal 180 degrees. What do you know about the measure of COD and DOF? Sorry, it should be EOD. This one is E. Sorry. So EOD and DOF, they equal 90. And they're in the ratio of 2 to 3. So I chose to use the letter Y because we already have an X. And so we can't use X. So this would be 2Y. For every 2Y, there are 3. Or for every 2, there are 3. So 2Y plus 3Y equals 90 degrees. Okay? Pause this video and see if you can find the measures of angle AOC and DOB. Come back to check your work. Okay? So I'm going to plug in. I don't know what the measure of angle AOC is, but I know the measure of COB is 2x plus 15 equals 180. Okay? Now, oh, sorry, it's minus. Why did I get put plus? All right. X minus 15. All right. I could get rid of this 15 and put it on this side. So I get the measure of angle AOC equals, plus 2x equals 195. All right? All right. I have to stop there. I can't do anything. So I'm going to come over here. 5y equals 90. Y equals 18. Right? So the measure of EOD, right, is 2 times y, which equals 2 times 18, which equals 36. So EOD is 36 degrees. I can plug in for the measure of angle DOF is 3y, which is 3 times 18, which equals 54. Or I could have subtracted 36 from 90 and gotten 54. Okay? Now, I'm trying to find, remember, I'm trying to find AOC and DOB. So this one and this one. And this is where it might be helpful to draw on your paper when you're doing your homework. Okay? So I know, what else do I know? I know that AOC plus AOE plus EOD will equal 180. So angle AOC plus X plus 36 will equal 180. So I know that the measure of AOC equals minus X from both sides. So 180 minus 36, which would be 144, minus X. I can take this and I can plug it in over here. 144 minus X plus 2X equals 195. I can combine like terms, subtract 144 from both sides, and I get X equals is that right? Yeah. 51. All right, so then I'm going to come back over here and I'm going to plug in X. So angle AOC equals 144 minus 51. So angle AOC equals 93. So I got my 93 here. And now I'm trying to find angle DOB. What do I know about angle AOC and angle DOB? Angle AOC is equal to angle DOB because they are vertical angles. So if AOC equals 93, DOB also equals 93.